What's good, everybody? What's going on, man? It's Stephen Qualls II, aka Mr. Qualified. It's your boy, and we are back with another episode of the Wright Quality Podcast. Man, it's been a minute. We have not seen y'all since pre-finals, really since the end of the Western Conference Finals. So, yeah, a lot to get into. But co-host, friends, please remind the people of who you are and reintroduce yourself to our new audience.
A minor. I'm kidding.
Bill talking about your pardon.
A major.
A major.
Ashley.
Yes.
Right.
Oh no. I'm No, I'm not the M in that part. Anyways, I'm wrong. I am wrong. I said 2 wings couldn't work, but all it took were 3 major injuries from 3 major franchises and matchup nightmares in the finals. But hey, no time to hate, no hateration.
Mm-hmm.
In the great honor of Kendrick Lamar, I don't have a hating bone in my body. We're here. It's hot. You could. It was like 80, like 2 days straight. It's a cold day.
80? That's hot.
86, 85, something like that the other day.
Wait, 80 is hot?
Yeah.
You should feel it up in the Midwest when it's humid. It's not dry heat like in, Arizona or Texas. It was muggy. I'm outside. I'm working at camp. Outdoors for 4 hours for what?
Oh no, that is hot. I didn't know
for the youth. That's what.
40.
That.
Anyway,
I'm tired.
But as Miguel alluded to, or yes, as he mentioned, the Boston Celtics are the 2024 NBA champions. Give them a round of applause.
Okay, I'll start off saying I was happy. Initially, I'm like, man, no. Let me give my full thought process. They won, and I'm like, the human side of me, I'm like, they try really hard. This is cool for these young guys, for the individual, shouts out, JB, cool human, finals MVP, that's great. JT, he made us light skins look bad. I'm gonna put it on wax. He came out and went 3 for 3 on viral clips where he didn't say anything original, and it just came off like his fake KG moment. I swear I'm not trying to be a hater. This is just the honest reaction to me when I first see it. I'm like, he's trying to do KG. And then he does the Kanye. And then I forgot the third one. What they gonna say now? What I'm gonna say now is what I said at the intro. They want to call our playoffs a whack one because Kyrie got hurt. Let me tell you, that was the most oralist finals I think I've ever seen in my life. In terms of dialogue, in terms of what did it give us?
Gil, that's a great point. I won't lie. In terms of being oralist, you're not wrong.
The Heat were an 8 seed last year, and it was fairly more entertaining.
Basketball wise, it wasn't more entertaining. Storyline wise, it was though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There was more compelling themes to it. When this one, it just seemed I didn't think a Jason Kidd-led franchise could do it ever. But hey, that's just the pessimist to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think my biggest thing is I don't want to discredit their run because they have been dominant.
They were. Shouts out Jrue. Shouts out Derek White. Shouts out Al Horford. Papi chulo. He came through. It was the we walked inside Cubanitas, we exchanged a photo, and then our lives were forever changed.
Boston had a great roster construction, which I think outside of Tatum had a great year. Jaylen Brown had a great year. Derek White had a great year. I think Porzingis, between being in and out the lineup, his stats were decent, but everybody had decent years, and they had probably the best roster construction in the NBA, in a roster that is made for the modern NBA at that. And we can get into that if that comes up later. But who do you all think was the most either important or impressive player doing the Celtics run? I mean, if you want to consider the regular season and playoffs, that's cool. But more specifically, who was the most important or more impressive to you all throughout the playoff run, more specifically?
I would say Jaylen Brown. He definitely made a leap for me in terms of like how he's been able to perform throughout the playoffs. He was there, he showed up, obviously finals MVP, well deserved. But when it comes like outside of that kind of core, I think their role players played a really big role. Obviously, like Peyton Pritchard knocking down shots, Sam Hauser. Those were big uplifting moments for them, and I think it helped keep the momentum going, especially when some of the starters weren't on the floor.
And especially with those people you said, like Hauser, I never saw him really compete like that on the defensive end at that level. Like we're in the finals and he's really, selling out for plays. So it's like that just really talks to, their culture, what they've built there. I think for me, I think I said it before, Derek White and Jrue Holiday. I don't think with them and Horford, all three of them, without them, they don't get this shit. KP's out. Al Horford turns into a monster and drops 7 threes in a game. Like his career high in a playoff run. And he's been in the playoffs for however long. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think if you don't have those pieces stepping up like that, I mean, you look at Dallas, they had a rookie Lively going against, a center that has had eons of playoff experience against him. Granted, he's having a great year. Like, that's going to be hard for any rookie center to try and stop the floodgates that are JB and JT attacking and them all stretching out the floor the way they were. It's just, it was a tall task from the beginning. It would have been nice to see, this not happen. But, when you have role players that are playing great defense like that, shouts out Jrue. He got done awfully by the Bucks at the beginning of the year, and for him to go there and show his impact right away and show what it looks like when he doesn't have the ball in his hands and what the usage didn't even have to be, and him still produce at a higher level. I think that shows what type of guard he is first and foremost, and what we should have been using him for, and maybe had a different primary ball handler. But, when he has less pressure on him, I feel like he's able to do more of what he's able to do.
Great points from both, and we will touch on both of those players individually. But to Jaylen Brown first, what did this championship run do for his reputation as it stands at the moment, but also his legacy as he is building that in his career?
See, it's hard to touch on because of the run that they had. Like, Miguel, you had a great point. The path in which they got to where they are now, it's like, where was the comp? Like, who defensively really could have stopped them? I guess he showed, like, he can rise to the occasion, but, like, what was the occasion for real? Does that make sense? Like, they were favorited by a lot in each and every game almost that they played throughout the playoffs. Injury riddled teams, stars are out for the opposing team. So it's like, what really did we see? And again, I don't want to take away from it. I do feel like he did, step up. He was scoring. He was clutch, especially in that game against the Pacers, game 1, going into overtime. So I guess he kind of showed that he can rise to the occasion. But I just still don't know what that occasion is.
I think to give him credit, I think defensively him taking that shot at Luka and just taking the challenge of guarding him game to game, being primary defender of him, and still putting up 30 of those first 2. I think without him, they don't win that finals, because JT doesn't show up those first 2 games. What happens if JB doesn't have the games that he had? So, it's one of those things where by design, it's great for the team. I think they will, continue to see success throughout these years. Will it be this type of success? We'll have to see. But, when you have 2 guards that are that dynamic, that can put up numbers like that, you can have a night where one of them doesn't produce how they should, and, the others hopefully pick them up. That's good team construction. But as for their legacies, I understand Ashley's point, but shouts out. They did it. No hateration.
Yeah.
It was just Juneteenth. Shouts out my brothers. We are unified as NBA watchers.
Miguel, please.
No, ISME is really happy that JT
What?
got it. ISME is really happy.
Yeah.
Shouts out, he got the big trophy, LMA. Shouts out TMZ.
Talk about the ultimate trophy. He said
Wright Quallity. He's out here winning on and off the court. Shouts out, champ.
No, I agree with both points made about Jaylen Brown. I'm trying to save like my summary piece for the end, but this Celtics season and their run is really hard to gauge because there are so many different factors at play for so many players that have high expectations that you don't want to invalidate winning, but there are things that have to be acknowledged as part of the run as well. So I do think it's interesting. I do think in terms of hardware and accolades and accomplishment, I do think that having a finals MVP under his belt with the narrative that follows this run in terms of, Miguel, to your point, Brown being the most maybe consistent player, for the Celtics, or at least out of the two stars, I think it does more for his reputation now in the moment than his legacy as it stands right now. But this all depends on how long Boston truly stays in the mix of championship contention, and that goes into a whole nother can of worms. But the other player that we mentioned, Jrue. So Miguel, you touched on it. We don't really have to harp on how bad Milwaukee did him. I think any true Bucks fan understands that, yes, you trade for Damian Lillard if he's available, but I think Jrue was such a, and that just gets into a different Bucks conversation, but Jrue was such an important piece to the team. Like all other aspects disregarded, to the team comp and what made Milwaukee so good and what it took off of Giannis as well. I think that is where Jrue was missed the most this season. But with him having his second ring now, making another all-defensive team, also is going to Paris to more than likely, in an ideal world, get his second gold medal as well. Does Jrue Holiday, as it currently stands, have a Hall of Fame career?
He does.
Yeah.
And also,
First ballot?
Ooh, I don't know if
I don't think so. And that, okay. Sorry, a friend asked me this. I was like, does it change what his like trajectory is? And I'm like, no. I think his trajectory is always going to be where it lands now, which was like a very, very good defensive player. I think defensive player of the year at some point of his career, but didn't get it for whatever politics. And I think great, like A-tier role player. I think that'll always be his slot. Hall of Famer indeed. Will it be first ballot? I don't think so. But, also I wanted to touch on like how important he was to the Bucks team, but also if he ever hears this, probably won't. Long shot. But it's like the city of Milwaukee, like they really meshed with the city really well. And I feel like that was the main thing I think that we were able to see like directly, where it's just like, that's really disheartening that someone that like said they want to like be with the Bucks for life and like was so invested in the community, and now there's kind of like just taken away from that what they were trying to build there. And I feel like it's more genuine than like a lot of ventures that certain athletes have. I feel like that's frustrating in the end too. And I know it's just a business, but at the end of the day, if they hear this, the city of Milwaukee would gladly have them back in whatever way, shape, or form outside of the organization, because we know they move a little grimy. But that is all.
Yes, no, agreed. Resume is extremely impressive. And I think what stops it from being an automatic first ballot is because it's an A-tier role player. And if that wasn't so accurate of a description, and of course it's not a knock, but if that wasn't so accurate of a description, I think he will be first ballot. But I think the rings only go so far, given that it just depends on what context you're putting him in. Because I think he's 6-time All NBA defensive team, two rings. I'm not sure how many All NBA. I had to double look that, but I had to double check that. I think the rings help the Hall of Fame case in general. And I think if you're looking at him specifically as a defensive specialist and looking at that skill set specifically, that also adds it, because I think he's one of the greatest defensive guards ever. And I think because of that, he could be in one of the greatest defenders conversation, of all time. Not saying it's a top 5, top 10 thing, but his name will come up if you're talking about best defensive players the league has ever seen and what he's been able to do. So I think that's an interesting case, but I definitely think he was the key. I won't say that he was the most impactful player, but I do think he was a Marcus Smart upgrade in a lot of ways. No disrespect to Marcus Smart though, but I do think that Jrue was an upgrade in some areas. And then you just consider, I think Porzingis is the true X factor, but again, trying to save that whole picture thing to the end. But last but not least, in terms of more so individual players, Jayson Tatum finally has, his ring. We're talking about somebody who's widely considered to be a top 5 player in the league. And so now that he has the, elusive ring, that's kind of been keeping him out of a lot of conversations, moving forward. But again, narratives, it's such an interesting case because this is a player who led, the team in all, major statistical categories. But if you're watching, he wasn't the guy. And what's hard about this is, and this is a great point that has been made, a counter to why we aren't seeing Tatum maybe meet the expectations. He doesn't have to. Tatum doesn't have to be the guy on a team where there's another player that could be the guy. 2 A-tier role players, if you basically consider Derek White to be in the same, realm as Jrue Holiday in that sense. And then a 7-foot sharpshooting, rim defending big man as your, to round out your starting 5. Tatum doesn't have to be Superman. So we won't see what we as fans are looking to see for Tatum to be that guy because he just doesn't need to. But all that being said, and with him ultimately having this ring now, how much of his legacy is solidified with having the championship under his belt?
See, my thing is, how much has Jayson actually shown? What did he do any different in this whole playoff run besides win a ring? Inconsistencies in each and every series, and I'm not being a hater. I'm just pointing it out. Sure, he's leading the team in assists and rebounds. You impact the game how you can. But when it comes to him scoring, averaging 23 to 25 points per game, but you're putting up 17 shots, how efficient are you being? And this is stuff that we see sometimes throughout, the course of the regular season from Jayson. So it's with him saying, what are they going to say now and all that? It's well, what have you shown us? What have you shown us? Yeah, you won, but honestly, it was on the back of Jaylen Brown, not you. And I'm not saying that he has to be the guy for us to dispel this narrative, but I'm saying he hasn't done anything in my eyes that makes me feel all right, we need to respect Jayson a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Agree.
Yeah, okay, so here's where my mind goes. I think the narrative is just going to have to die. Walk with me here. I think that the way their team is constructed, as long as they are constructed like this, we can't have this talk of who's top whatever, because oh my goodness, this is gonna sound crazy, but it's because it's not like we're seeing Jordan and Pippen because there's a 1A, 1B, but it's they have constructed a team where in terms of dialogue of oh, this is the best player on whatever team, it's like the Hawks where it's it could be anyone on a given night just based on how they play, where it's just we're never really going to get our answer because it could be whoever on whoever night.
Yeah.
It's just like that, where it's somebody could just be chilling and they could walk to 60 wins regardless. Everyone could have a night where, they don't have to do as much because the game calls for that because it's, essentially I don't know. And it's is it Spurs basketball or is it, I can't even say that because when you go to Spurs basketball, it's like Tim was still Tim. Like he was defensively, he was still an anchor. You could tell who was still like when they needed one, who are they going to? Like there's that type of thing, and I don't think that they truly have that. I think it's like a game to game thing where it's like, yeah, I'm throwing up bricks right now. Like take it. I'll be a diversion. And then if I end up slipping a pick and getting a nice roll of the basket and I dunk on somebody, I'm 6'8", 270. So of course I can do that. So it's like, I don't know. I think they might be narrative killers. We just might have to be okay with them being okay and getting chips off it
That
because
might be true.
they can.
Yeah.
And
And not that like okay is bad because like it's like they're playing like, hard-nosed defense, good ball, but if we want to say who's the GOAT, who's doing what, we can't say that to them as a team from what it looks like, at least between JB and JT.
yeah, no, that's very well. Ashley, was you about to add something?
No, I was just saying that actually, that's a good point. I do feel like maybe we need to just let the narrative go because I guess our issue is we don't see JT being the guy. And since he doesn't have to, we may never see that. So it's probably time to let that go. That was a good point.
Yeah, no, very real. I I feel like with the Celtics, especially this year, and these are just all the points that we pretty much made, but this is kind of like my general summary. They had a team that obviously was built to win a championship. I think that when you talk about JT and JB being first round picks, top 5 picks, they not even so much that they had the pressure to exceed certain expectations, but they also showed that they had X amount of potential. And then especially with the run that they've been on, making all these conference finals and going to the finals 2 years ago, and there even being this idea of them two having their redemption arc. I think that and that's just what the league is kind of built off now, the idea of narratives, and especially for players, there's a reason people bring up Dirk's ring and why Dirk's rings hold so much weight. As much as people like to talk about, Giannis's ring and with Kyrie getting injured, I still think Giannis's performance ultimately, especially considering the injury and return from, it's all about the narrative. It's the reason the ring in 2016 for Bron and Kyrie means so much, like the narrative of it all. So when I'm looking at them during the season, it's not that JT or JB didn't show up. It's not that they didn't produce in the way that we expect them to. It's not that they didn't impact the game in the way that we expect them to. But I mean, like you said, Gail, on any given night, Jrue can give you 20 to 25. Derek White could explode for 20 to 25. If Porzingis is healthy, he easily can average 25, especially on a team that's constructed to not only be able to shoot the lights out on offense, but on defense. How many teams in the NBA can actually switch everything? And they're good living with that. Like that's like their scheme is to switch everything because they can. Yeah. Like you have 2 all NBA defensive players, and then your 2 superstars also can take on that responsibility for extended periods of time. No other team is built like that currently. So we can't invalidate the run, and obviously none of us are. But I do think it's important to note that you all didn't play a lot of comp. And I just honestly think that they were the smartest team in the offseason last year, and the league just wasn't prepared for how good they were going to be, in all honesty. And I think that although they ran into teams that weren't healthy, I still think they were probably the better team. Even if all those teams were healthy, they were still the more talented team, going into those matchups. So I think it'll be really interesting going into next season when 1, they'll have the target on their back, and 2, the league is ready now. The league has seen it for a season. The league will be like teams will be building, to have to beat them, obviously. And there's going to be fatigue because 2 of your starters, well, honestly, 3, if Porzingis ends up playing in the Olympics, but they aren't going to get any rest. You know what I'm saying? The Olympics are around the corner, and then training camp is right after the Olympics virtually. So will that be a factor? Will their seeding next year be a factor depending on how they rest their players? These are all the things that we don't know. So definitely kudos to them like for this season. But I think everything that we've talked about, especially for the individual players, whether it be JB, whether it be Jrue, whether it be JT, I think now is where it really begins, more so for the wings than Jrue, because I think Jrue is in just a different class in terms of what we're looking at and what we're expecting. But for Jayson and Jaylen, I think from this point forward is where they will really cement themselves and their legacies, because okay, you got the first one. Forget the narratives, forget the questions around it. You got it. But y'all also have a team that y'all should get to. Y'all should be competing for 3. Like that's the roster that y'all have. So we should see how the future plays out, in that sense. But are there any thoughts on Dallas and the disappointment, if that's the word that we can all agree on, with their performance in the finals? Is there much to touch on outside of maybe this just being the lesson for them in the same way that the Celtics had their lesson in 22?
Yeah, I think it's just a lesson. I wouldn't necessarily say disappointing. I think Luka was exposed in terms of, playing for fouls rather than playing through the contact, and trying to finish. Kyrie obviously was exposed. I think I saw a stat saying he's never won in Boston since being traded from there. So yeah. But I don't think it's disappointing. They're young. A lot of first playoff appearances for much of their roster. So, I mean, there weren't really too many high expectations, at least from myself. So I wouldn't say disappointed.
That's real.
I would.
You would? I think their performance was disappointing. I don't think their season.
Like the season isn't a disappointment, but that they came out with some stinkers. Like Luka turnstile, and then just like the foul baiting was just insane. Like just cut it out. Like there were plays where it's like you could have been in it if you didn't flop on the ground. It's the finals, and I get it. There were calls that were let go 100%, but this is a man's world. Well, however that went, whoever saying that.
What?
But
Whoever
that
said
being said, yeah, they got to get better. Kyrie, I don't want to see the comparisons about this is the best, most skilled backcourt ever. Blah blah. Ugh. I get it. Jamal Crawford. The hype was real then, but oh my god, like anytime he sees a very very strong primary defender. Not to say that Minnesota didn't have those, but like he got shut down by Eric Bledsoe. I remember this.
Kyrie?
Yeah, like. When there's a scheme against him and they're like game planning for him, it's hard. And this is what we've. I don't know if I brought it up last pod. Did we? Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you hear this question about Kyrie is a not so great first option, but like a legendary second option for a team, for a championship team. Like for a championship team, like would not want him as my first option, but on any, you throw him on most teams, like as a second option, he is top tier.
That's really interesting. I don't disagree. I can't disagree because
the history.
The history, and as great offensively as Kyrie is, like if you have a bigger defender who is actually still, agile and athletic, it could cause Kyrie problems. I think one of the reasons, like Kyrie didn't have a mismatch to pinpoint, barely, especially within the starting 5, because if Jrue's guarding you, from when you get the ball on the inbound, then off the first pick, Derek White is guarding you. And then even if you do try to get another pick, especially the way Boston can guard, you probably going to still have to have Jaylen Brown or Jayson Tatum guarding you. And you got 3 arguably all defensive players guarding you the entire possession. And this is happening for the entirety of the game. There's only so much that you can do. But I think even outside of that, though, I still think not yours, but I still think that statement is true. And it's weird because he's so offensively skilled that you would think that yes, Kyrie could be your number one option. And in essence, he can, but I think he is more efficient as a god tier second option. If you have a more consistent first option. I don't want to say reliable per se, but just a more consistent in the sense of somebody who may not face the same challenges that a Kyrie might, whether it just be given size, what have you, the case may be. So yeah. And I think Dallas made great strides. I think they still had the best trade deadline, but I think the thing with them is going to be they still have pieces to figure out. And I know a lot of people have been making comments saying like there's been a lot of pictures where back when Dallas had Brunson and Porzingis. And I does think this presents an interesting question. So I think that both of them leaving Dallas still was best for Dallas ultimately and best for both of those players. I do think it starts to beg the question of how exactly do you build around Luka? And what adjustments will Luka need to make to adapt to actually having a roster built around him? Like, because I don't think KP was the greatest fit in Dallas. I think Brunson ultimately needed the space to be who he has become. But with as great as they've built a team around Luka, there's still growth that he has, and I still think that they are missing pieces. So I think Dallas is in an interesting spot where I think their offseason will be interesting, but they have to retool their bench, and they have to find a third person. It doesn't have to necessarily be a star. It doesn't have to be a superstar. But they need a third, like a reliable third option. Like somebody who you could legitimately potentially go to if you had to bench both Kyrie and Luka. They need a player of that magnitude.
I would love if they could snag BI. I think that would be amazing. That's the caliber player that they need. That's what I think. I think they have Gafford. I think Luka needs a rim runner like Gafford. Derek Lively is perfect. PJ Washington stretching the floor. I just think that they need more of a veteran presence. And not that BI has like the most experience, but I think he's a good fit. He would be a good fit.
It would be a great role for him.
Mhm.
Because I think BI would excel in a system like Dallas the way Jrue is able to excel in Boston.
Exactly.
Because he would not have to be the second option and really your first option, which he's had to be when Zion is injured. If he can be somebody where offensively, yes, my talent is there, but now I'm a third option.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that means he can tap in defensively more and unlock that potential even more. And now he can become more of a two-way threat. But that's still a 20-point scorer that you can rely on if Luka's having a slow night, if Kyrie's having a slow night. So I think that would be a great fit if I don't know if the money makes sense for that and how that looks, but that would be a great fit. That's the type of player that Dallas needs. But I think it's within reach for them. This season was not a disappointment, so I think that it's just a matter of them finding out what that piece is, who that piece is, and hopefully being able to make a move for it so they can stay in contention in this kind of window, that they have. But yeah, that's all things finals. We'll quickly go through some of these NBA news tips, and then we're going to get out of your hair. But first and foremost, Siakam signs an extension with Indiana. I don't remember the exact price.
4 years.
It's 4 years for sure.
Yeah.
If it's 70 or 80 or
a lot of money.
I mean, what's a lot of money in the NBA these days? But anyway, how do we feel about this extension with Indiana? I feel like it makes perfect sense. I mean, I feel like we saw his impact and how he fits great with this team. I think they have an extremely high ceiling, so I'm not surprised, and I am a fan of this extension.
Yeah, likewise. I agree.
Right.
I think it makes the most sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Another player that signed an extension, Malik Monk. And this just happened as of today. We were recording, but Malik Monk signs a 4-year extension with Sacramento, I think for about $78 million.
Mm-hmm.
So, but are we fans of this extension as well?
Absolutely. Great.
Yeah.
There.
I thought he was posting spooky stuff saying he was going to leave. So good for him.
I mean, it would make sense for Sacramento to retain the sixth man of the year. That would make that would make a lot of sense. No, I'm lying. He didn't win it. Nas Reed won it, but candidate. But yeah, it makes sense. I mean, Sacramento has a lot of work to do too, but I think Monk is a part of that core regardless. So there's that. The Caruso and Giddey trade that so just happened today. Oklahoma City gets Caruso, which for me that's
great.
Major. That is major. They're coming out the gate swinging this offseason. We all kind of assumed that they were probably going to move on from Giddey for a multitude of reasons. But I think that Caruso's a perfect fit. Veteran guy for that locker room. Another defensive leader. But because of his two-way ability, I mean, he's a better option than Giddey for that system, and I think he's going to fit perfectly along those other players. So Oklahoma City already making strides to stay in contention as well. But thoughts about Giddey to Chicago and what that even looks like?
I'm confused.
Apparently, Giddey is supposed to be the replacement for Lonzo Ball.
What?
In terms of a playmaker, in terms of them needing a playmaker. That is a report that I saw.
I thought Lonzo was coming back.
I did too.
I mean, I don't think he isn't ready.
I'm willing to wait. If Lonzo's willing to wait, I'm willing to wait. If the Bulls are willing to wait, I'm willing to wait. We don't need this Giddey guy.
Oh.
I'm not giddy over this move.
Do you think that does them trading Caruso insinuate that Chicago might be either contemplating or that they've already decided that they might be blowing it up?
They're blowing it up. They've been shopping. Levine, I saw reports of the Jazz, 76ers. So they're definitely blowing it up. I hate this for DeMar.
Yeah.
Hey, he was on stage. He's having a great time. Him, Taj.
He's having a wonderful time. Having a wonderful time.
Taj Gibson. That's crazy.
And then lastly, we'll end with some coaching news. How did y'all feel about Monty being fired in Detroit after one season?
Did they do it on Juneteenth Day?
They did. That was yesterday, right?
Yeah, very sick.
Wow. And the Dirty D, that's crazy. Yeah. I'm taking notes on that. That's crazy. Do not go to Detroit.
Yeah, no, I was really surprised by that move. Especially because Monty, like they convinced Monty to kind of come out of retirement, like he wasn't looking, you know, to coach right away. So, and I mean, Detroit was already a project to begin with, so I'm not sure why they want to go in a different direction or what they felt Monty did over the course of this season that just that just didn't warrant him, you know, the opportunity at trying to build this team. But I guess to each his own. But more importantly, to the head coach hiring that we all care about anyway.
Our competition is gone.
The Lakers have made it official, and they are hiring JJ Reddick.
Good.
Their next head coach.
Get him out of here. Get him out of our space.
Thoughts on this move?
Smoking on the JJ Reddick pack, trying to get in our space. Great pod. Loved it. It was amazing. But get out of our space. Now we get to cover
Get out of our space.
Come on now.
He was an op, I mean. No, I don't know what to think. I really don't. Is there any experience at all?
I think this is a setup. I think that this is a setup. I think the Lakers head coaching job, as many people have noted, is kind of a setup to begin with, especially when they just haven't been building the right roster around their superstars anyway. So the coaching doesn't necessarily matter in the way that, you know, they've made it to be in the narrative. But it's weird. I mean, do I think that JJ has the potential to be a good head coach? Absolutely. I don't think that is the question. How he got this job, I think especially I think that's the thing. I mean, it's hard to ignore the creation of this podcast and what that was, and then all of a sudden his name coming about as soon as, like, you know, Darvin is fired. And I don't know.
Well,
I'm
there were
thinking.
reports that they didn't talk to LeBron before hiring. So
I don't believe that one bit. I
I
don't.
don't either, but people on
I-
the streets were saying.
if y'all, I don't care what LeBron or Rich Paul say. LeBron got to say so.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron has to say so. So I mean, but this will be interesting. I think with JJ being so recently removed from the league, like I don't think I always wonder how this dynamic is with players. Like JJ has played with a lot of these players,
Mm-hmm.
at least some of the stars and most of the main role players. So I don't think that the respect thing is a huge question mark, but I do wonder what exactly is the expectation for this team with him as a coach. I guess that's still yet to be seen with what they'll do in the offseason, but
Over under on a player punching him.
oh,
Under. Under.
I mean, this will be extremely interesting to see.
Mhm.
I don't know.
That dynamic is gonna get messy. I don't know. I don't know.
I'll put it like this. If they were willing to hire JJ as the head coach, respectfully, you might as well let Bron be a player coach at this point. In all honesty, like, cause what's the difference? What's the true difference? Bron already don't listen to coaches as is. You think he really finna listen to JJ if he ultimately feel like what JJ finna tell him that he don't know? You know what I'm saying? So what does that dynamic look like? But yeah, the offseason is already getting very, very interesting.
Hey man, some friends might just pop out.
What does that even mean?
It's a
I feel like
Like
he's
pop
referencing
out?
the concert. I feel like he's referencing the concert.
that man changed some lyrics. He said we're on a 2-hour time difference because he knew that Drake moved to Texas. This is bad.
No, honestly, it was him playing Not Like Us 5 times back to back.
Yeah, no,
That's
that was
diabolical
insane.
work. That's
Mm-hmm.
It was starting off with Euphoria. Okay, no, wait. You want to know something messier? While you're waiting after DJ Mustard set to Kendrick's, he plays Stan by Eminem, which diabolical. Talking about biggest fan. Wow. Then he goes into a Millie by Lil Wayne, and I'm like, cheeky. Definitely still some notes there because it starts off YMCB. Oh, cool. Excuse me. Then he goes into Babylon by Outkast, which talking about you gonna walk around that stick, Andre 3K. There are nasty work.
Yeah.
Nasty work. On Juneteenth Day, nah. Let's the bow tie on it all. He said, we don't want to hear you say that word anymore. He said, I'm going to have a party and you're not invited. I think that's the most hurtful thing that stung. It's like, you saw that video of him in Houston? It was so not lit. It's gone. It's gone. We can't say his name for like a year. He shouldn't release a song. That was bad. That was bad. Whitney was there. Dave Free was executive producer. First name. I mean, it's just
it was
wrap it up.
It was a generational moment. It was absolutely a generational moment for sure.
Everybody on the stage. It was beautiful. It was incredible. I don't think I've ever seen such a beautiful stomp out of my life.
Not a beautiful stomp out.
But he made us forget about what JT did. I mean, let's think about another light skin.
This is true. He said it was just a war.
We did it! Hooray! I would have hit him with one of those if I won the chip. Hooray!
No, the we did it took me out. He was definitely trying to recreate viral moments.
And he was, and that's what. But I was like, he's just happy, It's a human in me. No hater energy in this. Unified as NBA fans.
Brian,
we'll miss you.
But yes, we will definitely be getting into more things happening in the off season as they continue to develop. Until next episode where we talk about the W, we will catch y'all next time. Peace.
Okay.
For Kendrick, for the W.